What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the news that we got earlier today that it seems like The Last of Us Part 2 is getting a remastered version. Now, this shouldn't be all that surprising because we have talked about Gustavo, right, who talked a while ago about how there's this other version of the game, right, where he can kind of do more in the game than he could do in the original, and people were like, what are you talking about? You're talking about a remaster, you're talking about, whatever it may be. Well, now it really has just come out that that's what it's called, The Last of Us 2 Remastered. And this comes from literally the lead outsource artist at Naughty Dog, who's still there, I imagine. They got a talking to because you see on their profile January of 2021 through, again, right now, they're still there, responsible for overseeing the production of all outsourced environment, art assets, weapons, and interactive props for two iconic titles, The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us 2 Remastered. And there you go. There's your confirmation that obviously this individual had worked with Last of Us Part 1 remake, and then obviously the second game getting a remaster. Now, it's similar to what we talked about this a little bit back in the day. I stand by a lot of the things I said, and you can see the maybe backlash is primarily what I've kind of seen online today. I think it kind of deserves it depending on what it's going to do, right? Because here's the thing. The game is obviously playable on PS5, and it's got some updates or some upgrades because of the PS5. There are a few more things they could do, like haptic feedback and 4K, and there's a few things. There's maybe a list of like 5 or 6 kind of updates. The one massive thing, they cannot charge full price or even 60 for this game. This needs to go down the road of, if you already have it on PS4, this needs to be that $10 upgrade. I really believe that, because there's not too much, even though it's been years. I mean, by the time this thing were to come out, maybe next year, almost 4, maybe 4 on the dot, whatever they try to do, 4 years after the original version launched, there's just not enough, I think, that you can transform this game to expect people to shell out like $70 like you did for, say, The Last of Us Part 1, the remake. And that had its own set of problems and its own like moral kind of components where, did you really need to do it? Do you need to charge this? Do you need to charge that, right? For this, it's not the same thing, but it's going to be similar conversations where you got to do that upgrade, even though it's been so long. And, but we had that. Like when the PS5 and Series S and X came out, there were tons of games that did the upgrade kind of jump from one to the other. Sony did it with some of their games, right? They had to get talked into it, I believe, for Horizon, right? Didn't they go against what they said and had to get talked into putting it back to $10? I forget the entire situation or the drama there, but that's the main sticking point to me. I probably would get it for the upgrades, but only, if it's $10. I'm not paying full price for it. And then the final part to this would kind of be Naughty Dog itself, right? I think part of the reason there's been some backlash towards Naughty Dog today is, okay, well, you've had this situation with The Last of Us multiplayer, and that's kind of like always there, and I don't think that's going away really anytime soon. But it's also, all right, well, you're really making The Last of Us like kind of your only thing. Last of Us Part 1, Last of Us Part 2, remastering them, remaking them in terms of one of them, right? And you have like the comparisons to like the Skyrim. Now, we're not there yet. This is not the Skyrim. It could be like Sony or Naughty Dog's version of Skyrim, and by that, of course, we mean like releasing it like 30 times, right? And that's an exaggeration, but it's actually not too big of an exaggeration. And so that's been a lot of the conversation online, and I'm somewhat with it. I kind of feel like it just further pushes the idea that something we talked about with the multiplayer, right? Can Naughty Dog really go through almost the entirety of the PS5 and say that their contribution as Sony's one of their biggest teams, obviously a critical kind of darling, right? That their biggest contributions maybe was like the Last of Us TV show is what they would say, right? Because Last of Us Part 1 being remade, Last of Us 2 remastered, Factions, even if it came out, all Last of Us. Now, Factions probably isn't coming out, right? So you're going to go through the entire PS5 generation, and maybe you can sneak The Last of Us Part 3 in there at the very end, and I do think that probably happens. But besides that, Naughty Dog's influence or impact's probably the better word, right? Naughty Dog's impact on the PS5 generation was a remake of a game that was 10 years old, and then a remaster of a game that, and depending on the price situation goes, could turn into something like a drama-filled disaster, right? So that's not great. I mean, I don't think that's unfair to say. Now, obviously, the story's not over yet, right? Because again, Last of Us 3 can sneak in, or maybe the multiplayer gets picked up next year and they try to finish it. You know, whatever may happen. And the remaster could only be $10. They do the upgrade path, and that's fine. That's perfectly acceptable. So there's ways of this not ending badly, but there also are ways of it ending badly, and hopefully that doesn't happen. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.